Kinguin formed their own CSGO lineup on the 5th of May, so just over 3 weeks prior to this video being recorded. And even in the weeks before that, there was a lot of exposure on the potential of this team coming into existence. People were wondering, was it going to go to SK? There was these talks about the buyout of Rain from LGB. Obviously, Maikelele and Scream are two high-profile players who've been in elite teams previously, but then since then have had difficulties getting even back into top 10 level teams. Now then, people have asked me quite a lot to talk about this, and so I've been waiting. I've been thinking about the team. I've been trying to see what perspective I would get on it overall. And actually, I haven't strayed too far from what my initial impressions when I first heard the news were. The more I've thought about it, a lot of it makes sense. So first and foremost, conceptually, the concept of putting together this team. Now, with no external context, with only my own perception of the team, it's a cool concept, actually. In isolation, it's not a bad idea. Get a few well-known aimers or impact players or explosive players or players with some talent, but who can't currently get into top teams, any of them. Top level, definitely not top 8 teams, and probably maybe they could get into top 9, top 10 level teams, but not going to be top 8 for any of them right now, just in terms of where they are in their career or what's happened to them in the past or the baggage they carry with them. That's cool to get them together, at least have them all in one team and try and make this explosive upset team, and that even the goal is like just have all these talents and see what they can do in CSGO and see what kind of a game CSGO is. That's not a bad idea. It's better than just having them separately or in tier 3 or tier 4 teams where they're never going to accomplish anything. They're only going to be online streamers, etc. I don't mind that as an idea, actually. I mean, the big problem comes that we have to bring in the context that is external, coming from other people. So, for example, fanboys, people who are just casual fans, people who don't know that much about the players, or people who remember the glory days of these players when they're at their peaks. So essentially, the biggest problem with talking about Kinguin's team, and the reason why I've named the video Kinguin's Dream Team, is that that's the way it was hyped up by people who were really excited about the move, because this lineup, to some degree, I'll put that caveat there, is sort of like a HLTV.org dream team lineup. As in, if you took a random fanboy on a forum and said, hey, here's a bunch of money, you can't use any of the current players in the top 10 teams, now put together a lineup that would be the best that you could get. Then the guy who maybe is a bit naive, maybe he's a brand new fan, or he's just a really casual fan who doesn't pay that much attention to the tactics and the history of the game, he might say, right, well, Maikelele's free from Nip. I remember his really explosive AWPing, Scream's a headshot machine. I love watching his streams. Rain, so underrated, so sick. And then with the other players, admittedly, and it's a stretch to even say Vox, I always call him Fox J, but okay, maybe they'd say Fox J if they were from Portugal. They'd be like, he never got his chance to be in a top team. Now, I don't think anyone would say SKYTTEN, but okay, let's just say that you have to say, right, and you need they have to be names. Everyone has to at least have a name. Well, he does have a name from his time in LGB, so okay, maybe this is how the fan would put together this lineup. Now, that is a problem, because if he then gets that and then thinks, right, well, all these different talents and pieces put it together, think about how much more they'd been than the sum of their parts and how much they could accomplish, and hey, they could be better than a team like Dignitas, where some of those players I don't even think are that good. No, that's where it all falls apart, and that's where the problem is, and that's why I actually think there's almost a backlash. As much as there's people who are hyping Kinguin, then there's like this anti-backlash that goes super hard and says they're total shit, they can never do anything, which goes a bit too far even to some degree, because but I understand why. It's in response to people really overhyping a team that's yet to do really anything significant, and really offline, it's very unlikely that they're going to have any top placings. So in terms of being a HLTV.org dream team, I say dream team because, again, SKYTTEN wouldn't be in a dream team, but HLTV.org dream team, okay, I can see then why that context needs to be addressed. Now then, in terms of Kinguin, the organization, getting this team and putting it together, it makes sense contextually if you understand the circumstances of the scene. Yes, obviously in an ideal world, if you were Kinguin, you could just buy a team off the top of my head, I'd think of one because obviously you're not going to get like a TSM type team. So, okay, maybe you could buy a team like Na'Vi in a dream world, okay, if you really had unlimited money and, hey, they have a team with 1 events and they're very exciting and they give you a lot of exposure, they have a lot of fan favorites. Yes, this would be the dream. But again, with a team like Na'Vi, what teams are available? First of all, none of the elite teams are available, especially because a number of the elite teams signed contracts not that long ago. So Envious only signed to Envious at the end of January, I believe, early February. They only signed to them previously in LDLC. They would have been a team available to potentially get. Virtus Pro was at the end of last year, I think, was when they signed 2-year contracts. They're out of the running, and obviously, in terms of the money they supposedly had before, you might have been able to get them. TSM was Dignitas until a similar time period as LDLC changed to Envious, so they were another one within the Dignitas. Maybe you could have gotten them then. But these teams are all signed away now. There's not that many lineups that are top 5 to 6 level teams that have signed a contract more than, say, 10 months back. A lot of them are fairly recent, and in fact, in response to all this, that's why you notice a lot of the North American organizations had to get NA teams, so actually maybe we're only like the 5th best NA team, but are paying them very handsomely, a lot of money, in contrast to even some of the European teams. Because the European teams who aren't making as much are actually the teams who signed their contract 11 months ago, 9 months ago. It's not that they really think these NA teams are better. It's that of the teams that are available right now, and they have lots of money to spend, these are the only ones they can get. So they're paying them more, but that the market will take care of itself in that sense. Because when these other top teams, top 6 teams who aren't making as much as some of these NA teams, come to re-sign their contracts, now there's a point where they can demand more money from their organization, or they can accept future similar offers to a Kinguin or an Envious type offer to go to a big organization for more money. So that's just actually the circumstances of CSGO having rapidly grown almost exponentially in the last year to 9 months, like 3 months on 3 months on 3 months on 3 months. So it actually means, counterintuitively, that the more recently you signed your contract, much better your contract can be, actually, because a lot more of the people with all the money getting involved, and then the inflation going on in the market has been taking place over the last 3 months, the last 6 months, a little bit over the last 9 months. So in that sense, it makes sense as to why you'd try this team, because in lieu of being able to get an elite team or even a top 8 team, okay, let's go another route then. We can't have a really good team off the bat that we know is provably good, but you can get a team like what this lineup's going to do that has a lot of exposure. I mean, I described it at the beginning of this video why it'll have a lot of exposure. There'll be fanboys hyping up the names and the star talent that the lineup has had at certain points in time, or contextually to how fans think of them. Then there's the people who hate them and are going to watch to hope that they lose and hope that everything goes badly. So you've now got a massive part of the fan base already watching, even though the team itself, despite the fact you're putting a lot of money in it, so it should be important, but just in terms of the team's level right now, they've never played a LAN. They're not a team that would have... You could never get this much exposure if you really had signed like a solid, like 13th best team in the world, but they didn't have these star names. They didn't have this hatred and this hype and all the drama and everyone knowing that they're getting paid a lot of money. All these factors are helping to form a lot of the exposure. And so in that sense, it's good PR for Kinguin. It keeps their name in everyone's mouth, keeps discussions going on constantly. Even every single little online map or online game is going to be broken apart, and every other player in the scene who makes a comment about Kinguin, like, oh, I think they'd be decent, or I think they'll be shit and do nothing, this is all going to be drama. It's all going to keep flowing up, and as a result, the name Kinguin, the advertising aspect, is going to be excellent. That, in that sense, again, it makes a lot of sense contextually to me. Not only because of the star power, the star names rather, but also the novelty, the idea of, hey, we're going to get all these aimers and we're going to get these players who are kind of the Ronins, the guys who maybe they could be decent, but they can't get into the right team in their scene, so they're all going to come together, make a band like a fucking movie where all the misfits get together and they try to find a way through teamwork to win. So it's going to have very good short-term exposure, as you've already seen. Now, talking about the actual specific team itself, let's go player by player. So, first and foremost, the players are Scream, former Titan player, very famous player, Belgian technically, but from the French scene, very skilled aimer obviously. Maikelele, former NIP player, and then way back an LGB player, but before the era of Crimson Olaf M being the gods when they all went to the semi-final of ESL 1 Katowice. He wasn't in that lineup, but Swedish player, Explosive Orpa, fought previously in NIP. Rain, who was previously the star player of LGB, Norwegian player, known for his skilled rifle player, reasonably complete game. SKYTTEN was the support player of the LGB team that did go to the semis of Katowice. And let me think, actually. No, actually, I think SKYTTEN was actually the era with Maikelele. I think I fucked that up, actually, yeah. Now I remember it. He was back in the old one with Maikelele. Fox J... I call him Fox J. People could just call him Fox now because there aren't many Foxes in the scene, but we always called him Fox J in 1.6. Always lauded on HTTP.org forums by Portuguese people as like, oh, he's so good and he could be so excellent. So, okay, you can see the background that all these players have. Now, I'll go in the order of how good I think they are. So first of all, I'll state how good I think these people are as CSGO players. For me, Scream is far and away the best player in this team, by far. The problem Scream has is that his talent level is very high. He is one of the best aimers CSGO has ever seen. And online and in lesser level teams, he's going to really impress you. He's constantly going to have these crazy kills and crazy halves and single maps where he just dominates and you're like, this guy should be one of the best in the world. Why isn't he in Titan? Why isn't he even getting a chance at Envious? Why can't he be in some other team and just be the star name? The problem that Scream has is that we know what Scream's about. He's a known quantity. The only time Scream can be extremely excellent and even at times dominant like this is either online, so there's no pressure, then he can just be free and he will be dominant, or in a tier 3 approaching tier 2 level team where it's not very good players, and so the structure's looser and they just let him do everything he wants. He can go where he wants, play the positions he wants, play how he wants. No one's commanding him on what to do. He doesn't have a set role. In this sense, if he's free to go around the map and do whatever he wants, then he will have these occasional maps and games and a very high level of skill output. It'll look very good. The problem is it's going to be hard to build a team around that. It's going to be hard with lesser players at that for the team to ever actually be that good, because it's just going to be a one-man army, and if he doesn't go absolutely insane above and beyond even the level of the other star players, because you're going to be facing teams with better players because you're on a bad team, it's just not going to happen for you. You're not going to get into the top 8 in the world. You're not going to get into semis of offline tournaments. You're likely not going to get out of many group stages. So that's the problem, because we've seen him when he was in Very Games and Titan, and he was a good player, and he would have little periods where he looked really good, but he never quite fit, and he could never quite play in Very Games and Titan fully to the level he can in these other lesser teams when he has this freedom and he can do what he wants and there's no pressure like online games. In those big semi-finals and finals when he was in Very Games and Titan, he was still one of the question marks and one of the very volatile, sometimes problematic players who couldn't quite fulfill his role and do everything you wanted of him. It just seemed like communication issues. He was a bit off in terms of being able to do the same thing over and over again without more of a loose freedom. And so part of why they became the champions was when they had shocks and he just went absolutely insane. Scream could be good sometimes, but he was never quite able to develop that potential that you see when he's in the lesser teams. So starting right there, Scream is a player who's much better than this lineup, and in terms of raw skill, does deserve a top 5 team in the world. His problem is his other aspects, maybe not being such a great communicator or team player, having issues fitting into set roles and within a team system. That's where the problem comes in. If it was up to me, I'd have preferred Scream went off to a team like, because he's got such mad skills, I'd like a team like a Cloud9 or someone to have thought about importing a player like this and have him come in and be this mad aimer and let him have a lot of freedom, but then have the other players team play together and then just have him as like a JW style wildcard who's just going to rack up crazy frags, give you a lot more skill than you're going to have otherwise, but you're going to make the system of the team based on the other players. It's going to be hard to do that in this lineup because you don't have the other players to do it. So Scream, excellent player in some senses, has great problems otherwise under pressure, fitting a role and deep in tournaments. He's just had some issues sometimes, especially in a set role. Now then, here's where it gets interesting, because people are going to think, you've just said you're going to go in order of who you think's the best. Second best player in this team, Rain. Now, whoa, what do you mean, Rain? Maikelele was a nip, you have a very explosive player, impact player. I agree with all those things. The thing is, Maikelele, I'll talk about Maikelele and Rain together. The thing with Maikelele that I noticed, because I watched a lot of his games back before he joined NIP to see what impact he might have in NIP, and he didn't really change as a player. Maikelele is the kind of player who can get like a 20 kill, 20 death game where certain kills in it will be incredible. He'll have a round, he'll have 2 or 3 rounds in a row where he gets a crazy pick, a repeat really fast, double, triple op sequence where you're like, wow, what a skilled player, like he should be one of the best oppers in the world. But then he'll have another couple of rounds where he'll just get picked, he'll make big mistakes and give away the kills, and that's how he'll end up on like a 20 kill, 20 death game, which shouldn't really be happening for a superstar level player. So as a result, his kills on certain rounds can have a big impact, and he can be very explosive and turn a game or turn certain rounds in your favor. That's the upside. The downside is consistency. It's not that he's inconsistent. He is in a sense. It's that he's just not that good in the other areas. He's not a complete, very polished, well-rounded player. He's very good at specific things. And so you have to take the upside of that, but you're not going to get this complete package type AWPer who can open every situation, always on this spot, reliably get these kills, and he's going to give up kills and give up rounds as well. So in terms of just adding a little impact player like he was to NIP, he can be very good. But I actually think Rain overall at the moment is a better CSGO player, because Rain is more of that consistent player. He's not actually exceptionally good. He's not like a Scream in terms of raw skill, etc. But he has skill. It's well-rounded. It's quite polished. He's definitely the best Norwegian player to me. And I think he is a good enough player where in a world where he could join a Swedish team, okay, why couldn't he be in like a team that could be like 8th in the world or 7th? As long as he doesn't have to necessarily be the best player, he can just be like the second best player and play this solid rifle role. I think he could be a very good player. So at the moment, we've got Scream, we've got Rain. now we're going to move on to the problem with Rain as well is he hasn't fully been proven. He's had a few lands, but we've never seen what happens if he gets repeatedly to semi-finals and finals. Does he hold up under pressure? That's what we don't know with Rain. So he still has, of these three players, he still has an unknown quantity to him. Now Maikelele, I've just kind of described there the ups and downs of it. The problem here is you don't want to put it like, oh, we've got Scream, Maikelele and Rain. We're going to know exactly what we're going to get here. I know what I'm going to get from Rain. Scream's very up and down, but okay, I know he's going to be quite dominant in less pressure games, online games, and in group stage type games. He could have one map where he's absolutely the best player in the server. Maikelele's a bit more up and down, but you know what to expect from him. The problem is these three right here, just looking at the most skilled three in the team, we already can put them against teams like offline, TSM, Fnatic, probably even NIP, who else? Na'Vi. Let me think. Virtus Pro. Have I missed anyone out? Those teams alone all have a three-man combo of skilled players who are better than this three, who bring more to the table, are more consistent, have a higher skill level average overall. The only team I didn't put in there, in fact, I think was... Oh, Envious obviously should be there. The only team I didn't put in there out of the top 6 to 7 is I didn't put in Titan, because admittedly, when I look at Titan, I could see games where this three could be better than the three of Titan overall. Not just one-offs, like on a reasonably regular basis. The difference is, Titan then have the tactical advantage and solid communication and setups where they should beat you on the other aspect. So you can see there, just in terms of the skill aspect, why you shouldn't be too hyped about this team. It's got some potential, it's interesting, but don't be too hyped like, oh, and they've got this. It's not a group of crazy aimers who might try and beat the other teams. No, the top teams have just as crazy aimers as these guys, and even more proven. Going to the other two players, I'm actually going to put SKYTTEN as the fourth best player, even though I think the fourth and the fifth is a wash. The fourth and the fifth, SKYTTEN and Fox, are significantly below the other three, but I'm going to put SKYTTEN up there because he's just a decent support player. He was never that sick before he was in LGB. He was never that sick in SK or in Orbit. He was just okay. His issue is, I'm sure he's going to help play some of the team play aspects in the team and provide some of the stability. Him and Rain, to me, have to be the really stable players who work well together and have some tactical framework, because we have to let Maikelele and Scream have freedom and go crazy and frag. So SKYTTEN, in terms of stability and knowing what I'll get from him, that's why I put him there. Fox is my big problem, because a lot of people would want Fox to be like a Maikelele type, explosive AWPer, just have crazy rounds, give him all this freedom. Well, we haven't got space for that. We've already got Maikelele doing that. We've already got Scream, who needs a lot of space and freedom. So I don't see how Fox is going to fit in this team, because to me, Fox in CSGO has never been as good as Fox in 1.6, and Fox in 1.6 was mega overrated by people with Portuguese flags on HLTV.org. In 1.6, Fox was always treated as though he was up there with like the Solo, Kogu, real type players from countries that had lesser scenes towards the end, but were still beasts and could be up there with like Forest Neo, etc. He wasn't close to that level. To me, in terms of players from lesser known countries that had like one really good player, I even thought people like Oscar from the Czech Republic were better than this guy and had more upside. We saw Fox play a lot of LANs, especially Game Goons, etc. We saw him play a bunch of group stages, play against a lot of players in like top teams there, have chances for upsets and very rarely get them, play a lot of online matches, and he was a good player. He was above the level of all the other Portuguese players. He was a good AWPer even in terms of the scene, but he wasn't like a top 6 AWPer in Europe. He wasn't a top 6 AWPer in the world. He wasn't some great player, and so in CSGO I think he's been even more lackluster. He's actually not transitioned that well. He doesn't have as much impact even as he did in 1.6. So Fox, to me, I don't really care either side on. Okay, if he's the last player you pick up for the name, okay, but I don't think he's going to have much impact. With SKYTTEN, the issue as well I have to bring up is that supposedly, from what I've heard, he's the in-game leader. Now, what basis is there for him to be like a really good in-game leader? I don't know much about him being an in-game leader. I can't think of any teams where he was a really solid in-game leader. When we go back to LGB, as far as I know, Dennis was the in-game leader there. And when you think of LGB, and even if I'm thinking of SKYTTEN's era, main LGB, the one with Crimson Olaf, ESL Katowice, they were legendary for being a run and gun team. They had very high skill level, played very explosively, and tried to just kind of find an opening, then ram it down your throat and just thrash you with mad aim, because they actually had a lot of good aimers. Now, the SKYTTEN era one wasn't even as good as that LGB, and they weren't known as some tactical powerhouse or some grind out team or some great CT setup team or good at reading the team. No, they were just a mix of really good players, of good players rather, some of whom hadn't had the chance yet to get to the elite level, like Crimson Olaf obviously would later on, and Dennis maybe could have. So I don't know that I buy the basis of him being good in-game leader. He's got a lot to prove in that sense. Now there's the players. The problems in them becoming a top team and why it won't happen. Well, first of all, the only reason we're even talking about them becoming a top team, an elite level team, or a top 6 team even, or a top 8 team even, is because of the context of the names, the hype, and the expenditure that we know has been put out there. Beyond that, there's no reason that we would say they'd be a top level team. I mean, when Scream was in teams with maybe almost a similar level of talent in the past, we never looked at them like, oh, this should be an elite level team. We were like, no, they probably won't be. And we know what's going to happen with Scream. Have great online games, maybe one good game offline, but probably not going to win any series. The biggest problem to start off with, they don't have any true star players. Now, that might sound like a crazy comment, because the whole point is, remember, this is a dream team. This is supposed to be all these star names. Yes, the names are star names. Scream has the talent to be a true star player. His problem, like I've said before, is that in order for him to be that star player in terms of the impact he has on a game, it feels like you have to weaken a lot of the rest of the team. And so unless you had a specific lineup, like I said, with Cloud9 being a separate aspect, I don't really see how it would work. Maikelele's not really a star player. He's an impact player, he's an explosive player, but he's not a star. Like, he's not going to consistently give those numbers and always give you them on this map and in this situation. He doesn't have that star quality. There's a great saying about stars, okay, that they have in the NBA, which is the concept of the star player in the NBA is, if you're down 2 points and you need a basket right now to stay in the game or stop the other team taking the lead or win the game, who's the guy that you would give the ball to right now and you know he could give you the 2 points? That's like the star quality. None of these players can do that in terms of this team. Rain, again, not a star player. Yes, he was the star player of LGB, but LGB was like the 12th or 13th best team in the world. They weren't a top level team. So if we're going to call him a star, and then I make, so Olaf M's a star, and Kenny S is a star, and Rain is a star. Well, you see that one of these three is different. It's almost unfair to call him a star in that sense, because you can't make it like he's equal to them. Yes, he's a star of his team, but he's not a star in the context that those players are, because they're stars amongst all players. Get all the players, and they're better, and they're stars, and you pick them out of those players of Get Right, Aloe, etc. Obviously not as much Kenny S now, but in the past, I'm thinking. So this is an issue. They don't have any star players. It's not even like they have some basis that they can build around, and then the others can do whatever needs in the team, and at least these stars. It's not like having Kenny S in Titan when Titan was terrible, but they knew if we just put the tactics and the team play around him, Kenny S can carry us in this way, and maybe we could get to win an event, which they didn't do, but they had a lot of great performances in Titan. They have a lack of proven LAN talent. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, Scream, their best player by far, has had some issues deep in LANs. He is a solid LAN player. He does have tenure. But in terms of his LAN experience or LAN performance doesn't match up to his talent and his history, okay? That's the biggest problem with Scream. Maikelele, okay, I'll give him a bit more credit. He has a bit more... I mean, I've only really seen him have one legit bad performance, which was the iOS Panamera tournament. But other than that, when he wasn't in NIP, he wasn't like beasting it online. He'd have some good maps here and there, just like he did in NIP. So his problem's more like, in terms of proven LAN talent, he's not a star level talent on LAN. Rain, again, I mentioned it already. He's had some LANs, but he hasn't gone deep in LANs, so we don't know what actually he's made of in that sense. And so being this great consistent player, we don't know how that'll hold up in a big semi-final versus like Envious, etc. The others, SKYTTEN has a bit of LAN experience. He's been to a lot of LANs, but again, he hasn't been deep in them. And FoxJ has, in the context of top-level CSGO, relatively almost no big LAN experience. So there's none there. So again, it's not even like there's a LAN basis to make the case that this should be a really good team. They almost undoubtedly surely have some kind of communication issues. Now, admittedly, I could see a world in which Maikelele, Rain, and SKYTTEN could all communicate very well with each other. Maybe that can work. But how would FoxJ, speaking English, be able to communicate well with Maikelele speaking English, be able to communicate with Scream speaking English very well? It's going to be limited communication. That doesn't mean it has to be terrible. Hey, maybe they get that 1 in a million lineup where somehow naturally they can play off each other with an intuitive style. I doubt it, because like I say, 1 in a million sort of. And since they're not from the same country, normally people have that intuitive lineup if they get it, and then they all communicate well and they're all got the same cultural background. They've got everything going against them in terms of communication and then building that into team play. That's one of the big problems they have here. And lack of team play or lack of ability to communicate is going to make it hard to improve things. It's going to make it hard to make artificial changes like, hey, you're in the wrong position there, can you swap this up next round? Or, hey, they're coming into B now, what does that mean? Is it just very simple communication? Can you give more info? This is an area where they're going to be hindered, where none of the top level teams in theory are going to be hindered to the same degree. Even NIP speaking English to Alu is not going to be close to the level of communication issues or team play issues that this team should have. Tactically, as I said, SKYTTEN, I'm not really buying it that he's going to be some monster in-game lead, so it's not like they can get an edge on people in in-game leading or tactics, so if anything, they're going to be at the same level as every team they're going to play that's better than them, or worse. And the lack of really good tactics, setups, communication, and team play is going to cost them in terms of ever being able to win a big series offline. Because how are they going to prepare properly for it? How are they going to get edges on teams? How are they going to be able to grind when they're on T side? It's one thing to just get rounds when people are having crazy kills and frags online, when you can lose, play another game the next day and then win that. Okay, who cares about the game we lost? In a tournament, there's going to be specific halves and maps where you have to get this map. Because once you get like into the top 8, the top 4 of an offline tournament, you're playing teams, if you're a team like Kinguin, who are better than you. So now you have to win the one map that you have a good map on, because you know that the next map is like Fnatic on Cobblestone and you're not going to win that one. So then you go into a third map and that might even then be a 70-30 to them. And now you have to have a miraculous performance. You can't even give up that first map. And if you need to grind rounds out, you have to be able to get reliable rounds. And you have to have a map pool depth if you want to play against any of these top teams. Once you get into the top 5 teams, these teams go 4 or 5 maps deep in the pool. How many is Kinguin going to go? Where's Kinguin's one solid map that they can definitely win, which all those top teams have? No one knows what it's going to be. What about their map pool depth? Which ones are they going to be at worst a 45, 55 underdog on? Well, we can't even name them at the moment. They wouldn't even have 2 or 3 that they'd be that. So that's going to make it very difficult to win a best of 3 over anyone in the top 8 offline. Setups is going to cause them problems in terms of reacting. Even if they could read the enemy terrorist strats, how are they going to react to them? How are they going to adapt to them? Aren't they just going to do similar things, be in similar positions and rely on their aim and hope Scream kills everyone, hope Maikelele peeks and gets the guy of the AWP instead of getting killed there, hope Rain plays solid, takes out 2 when they come in the site? This isn't really a basis to be a top level team, because all those teams above you, again, have all these qualities, but then better qualities built in and team aspects. This is a team where it will only be the sum of its parts. I don't think it will be more than the sum of its parts, that's a mark of of all the good top teams. They are better than just the parts that they have. Even Titan is better than the parts it has. Obviously, teams like Envious, Fnatic, Virtus Pro, TSM are much more than the sum of their parts. So what are the expectations for this team? Let's be realistic. They will live and die by mad fragging. And when I mean mad fragging, I mean games in which Scream and Maikelele go absolutely crazy and play to their max level, which can happen for Scream a lot more than Maikelele. In those games where Scream drops 20 kills and Maikelele has like 3 or 4 rounds where he gets like 9 kills in that span, that are really big impact kills that open a site or kill a terrorist running into the site and immediately give you a chance to hold, those games, they will win big maps off team. Especially online, and maybe offline they could win like a map in a group stage. They will win online. They'll maybe even win series online over top teams. But that's because it's online. It's not as much pressure. It's not as big a deal. Rain can be very solid and sometimes complement one of those two. Again, they have chances to upset. Their problem is that is the first condition for them to be able to win big series or big maps against better teams. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Like, If those 2 of those 3 don't go absolutely nuts, and if not 3 all play to a high level, it's impossible almost. Now they can win online series and maps. They could probably even win the odd best of 1 offline if they had a hot streak of form, or they got the opponent on the right map, depending on the map pool selection. If it was random selection, if they got no major, hey, they could win a map there. It's very unlikely they will ever beat a top 5, top 6 team in an offline best of 3. Like maybe if they got Titan on a good day on the right maps, they could have a chance. But even then, Titan's very good at selecting the maps. Titan's very good at tactically responding to people. Titan's very good at making the most of the talent it does have, even if sometimes it lacks for a little bit of talent. Even then, you're going to have a really, really inspired best of 3 to beat them in a best of 3. And the other teams, VP, TSM, NIP, in terms of offline best of 3, like in a semi-final or a quarter-final, forget about it. It's just not going to happen. I mean, think about Hellraisers, the old Hellraisers, when they used to have Markelov, where they had all this aiming talent. Much more aiming talent, by the way, than this lineup has. They had all this aiming talent, and they had all these aimers who were going to try and just run around and play off their aim. They could always, online, have crazy results that were sick. Then offline, they'd have that one big best of 1 result. They kind of still do it here. They did it at DreamHack Tours. But then what happens when they go to the best of 3 stage? We know historically what happens. Aside from the odd occasion like DreamHack Summer 2014, nearly every other occasion, like all the majors, they get utterly rocked in the round of 8 or in the first best of 3 stage. They lose 2 maps really convincingly. Maybe they can get 1 map, but that's about it. It's not going to happen for them. So if that's Hellraisers, who all can speak the same language, who have a history with each other, who have a basis of tactics and some level of setups, etc., just can't execute them that well, and then have better aim, if they can't do it, why would we expect Kinguin to? What? Because you love Fox? Because you love Maikelele's personality? Hey, I like his personality. It doesn't mean that makes me think he's going to beat out Na'Vi in a best of 3. You have to be realistic about this. if they were at a DreamHack Tours type event, in line with what I just said about Hellraisers, it could be possible they could get to a semis. Because remember, to get to the semis, really you only need to be able to beat like the second best team in your group, maybe twice. No, maybe once, because you can beat the lesser team also. So say you got to a scenario where you're playing like Titan on a newer map, you could maybe win that one map, but then you get to the semis, and then like I said, you'd lose to the better team, like Hellraisers did for the Fnatic. And on 2 of the maps had no chance, even though they fluked the first map or had an excellent performance where everything worked and won the first map, but couldn't do that 2 out of 3 because they're not that higher level of team. If I had to predict, I think they could qualify for a major, as in qualify, just get there. That's not unrealistic. I still wouldn't bet on them to do it because there's so many good teams out there, but okay, they could do that. If I had to predict, I don't know how long the contract lasts or how long before Kinguin loses faith or whatever, but if Kinguin's fine with exposure, yeah, they could last as long as they want. But if we're looking just on results and they have to deliver top results like top 8s and top 4s at lands, I would bet that this team would last about 6 months from being formed. So 5th of May, 6 months forwards. It would last about 6 months if it had to go on results, and that whatever results it got in that time, if it was to continue, it was very unlikely it would exceed that level. Like, I think whatever they could accomplish in that time, maybe they had one top 4, like a DreamHack Tours, smaller tier 2 type LAN, or maybe they could get into a major and then either get out of the group stage and just get wrecked in the quarterfinals or just lose in the group stage. That's about the best that they would manage, and they wouldn't be able to go much beyond that. It just wouldn't happen for them. Will they crack the top 8 of my rankings? I doubt very much that would ever happen. That they'd be able to have a consistent enough run of individual map wins, best of 3 wins, placings to ever get into a top 8. Think of some of the teams near the top 8 and just below 8 to 10. The sort of teams that are around there. So like Dignitas, who recently had a top 4 and looked very solid against Envious. Flipside. At times, Simple can be a monster. Online, they're monsters. Will they be better than Flipside? Probably not. Flipside have a tactical basis, have skills and aim that they could outdo a team like this. Hellraisers. Hellraisers, to me, is a better version of Kinguin in a lot of senses, and without some of the disadvantages. Cloud9. Even right now, I think Cloud9 would do pretty well against Kinguin. Probably quite competitive, but the upside for Cloud9 is much bigger. How about Vox? Vox, yes, like overperformed perhaps at Gfinity, and the format helped them. But Vox would probably have certain areas in terms of team play and a tactical understanding, communication, obviously, where they'd have mild edges over Kinguin, even if Kinguin could out-aim them and out-skill them. So these are 5 teams before we've even got into the top 8, top 7 teams in the world. And we're not even necessarily saying we know that Kinguin can be better than these. Yes, CSGO is a more aim-reliant game than 1.6. You can beast certain maps in a way you just couldn't have in 1.6 unless you had an absolutely miracle performance and everyone played badly. But I don't see this happening in terms of this ever becoming a top-level team. Their name and the exposure level will be bigger than the actual results in terms of drawing it out over 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. So is it a dream team? No, not really. If anything, it's Kinguin's dream of a team. This is the dream that this could be a top team. That if you put these players together, it could work in that sense. It's not going to be a reality. It's not going to be a top-level team. That just seems to be a reasonable analysis to me.